what would you want for people like myself to understand who has never been in a cult, has never been a member of a cult, in order to kind of help them understand people from your situation or from your side, like those TikTok commenters?
Yeah. I would explain to them how much brainwashing goes on within cults and plain communities, and how it starts at day one. So people, when they ask, well, why didn't you just leave? Or, they have a choice. Explain, not really, like we didn't really have a choice. We didn't know that there was another way out of life out there, or we thought that it was completely different. So when we feel like that's the set way, it's because it was basically brainwashed into us.
100% of the proceeds gained from this monetized episode will be donated to sciencesaves.org. Thanks for listening. So, ladies and gentlemen, listening to the podcast today, I have a very special guest, Jules, goes by one name only, Jules. And she is here to talk a little bit about her background within a very specific denomination, a very specific faith, or actually a combination of a couple. She has a very, very interesting past. And with that, Jules, I'm just going to turn it over to you, and you can tell us a little bit about yourself and what you're going to be talking about today and anything interesting you want to include.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you said, my name is Jules. I'm a 911 dispatcher, police dispatcher, and an EMT. Recently started sharing my story and advocating for other cult survivors. I was part of a Mennonite church, as well as the Institute in Basic Life Principles, IBLP, which is led by Bill Gothard. And then we were also in a Messianic Jewish synagogue. With the Mennonite and the IBLP, we're not like official members, but we follow like all the rules, had like all their, not all their, but a lot of their books, all those kind of teachings, just kind of all lumped in there.
Yeah. So when you have like the books and the rules and you follow the doctrine, what separates you from officially being a member if you do all those things that they require?
So I think with IBLP, there's like a contract or something that you have to sign. My parents
My
never,
goodness.
that's to my understanding, and my parents never signed that contract. If you are official members, then you have to use all of their homeschool curriculum, nothing else. So my family, we use some of their books, but we also use like Rod and Staff, which is a Mennonite-based curriculum, where people that are in just IBLP, they have to do all that, and they have to submit like, I think it's like every month they have to send in a report with their homeschool groups and how they're doing, and like if they've followed everything properly, all that kind of stuff.
Wow. So how do you come to the realization, or I guess when in your life did you come to the realization where you're like, I think I might be in a cult? This seems like a cult to me. Like how old were you when that happened, and how did it happen?
I didn't really think of it until about a cult until just about this year. I was my friends about all the rules that we had to follow, and they're like, what is the name of this cult? I was just like, oh, well, it's not a cult, it's just Institute in Basic Life Principles, it's just a little religious group. And then I Googled it to show them like some of the things that we had to follow, and like the first thing that popped up was that it was a cult. And I just started like researching and digging, listening to other people's stories, like looking into what a cult is. And I was like, oh, this is actually a cult. You were right.
Wow.
But I had already
wild
years when I came to that realization.
Yeah, that's wild. And so when you think back on your experiences within this, what you now recognize was probably a cult, do you have positive memories, negative memories? How do you feel like it impacted you in terms of who you are currently?
Mostly negative memories. And a lot of it was kind of so traumatic that my brain just kind of blocked it all out.
Yeah.
So I have entire years of my childhood that I don't even remember at all.
Wow.
But yeah, it was a very negative experience. And I've spoken with a lot of people from the similar situations. They also seem to have pretty negative experiences.
Yeah. Did you think at the time that that was just kind of everybody's growing up experience, or were you aware at that time that it was a little bit different than most people?
I thought that it was normal to me, because like all of my books and everything were, from IBLP or the Mennonite church. So I just kind of assumed that that was the right way of life. But the few times that I was allowed, because we homeschooled, the few times that I was allowed to like go to town, I would see like other people could wear pants and have short hair and all that kind of stuff. So I knew that there was another way of life out there, but I didn't really realize just how different it was.
Yeah.
I thought like my family taught that women are basically like property. And so like my dad said that he could do whatever he wanted to my body because like I'm his daughter,
Wow.
basically his property. So I just kind of assumed that like all families are like that. And then I left and turns out it's not like that at all.
No, yeah, that's wild. And so what are some of the rules that whenever you started to tell people about them triggered them to kind of be like, that doesn't sound normal at all. That sounds like a cult.
I had to wear long cape dresses that came like down to my ankles. Um, Different years we were like varying levels of strictness. So some years I had to wear like mostly plain clothes, like no prints on them. And then there were some times where the prints had to be like quarter size or smaller. I had to have long hair, wasn't allowed to cut it at all, and had to wear a head covering with the bonnet. It was supposed to symbolize that I'm under my father's authority, under his leadership, and that
Wow.
I follow whatever he said.
Yeah.
I think it was mostly an IDLP rule where that women had to smile pretty much all of the time. We were not allowed to show like any kind of emotion, had to always give
Wow.
like a happy, good report of the house. So people look at my child and they're like, well, you look so happy. I was like, yeah, I was smiling, but I wasn't actually happy. Look at my eyes.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. And so when you are part of a group where basically the rules revolve around you do what your dad wants or what men want at all times, how do you get out of something like that? How do you even start to get out of something like that?
It was a long and complicated process. I think I started when I was a teenager. I just ripped off my head covering one day because I knew some of the things that he was doing, especially to me, like were not right. And I did not want to submit to that, even though like, it wouldn't have been my fault or anything. I didn't want it to be, on me. So I was
Right.
like, ripped that head covering off. I was like, I am no longer under this. Like, obviously, I was still a child. So I still had to, obey my dad because, as kids are supposed to do. But just slowly started realizing I don't want to be under a man's authority. I am human, not property.
Yeah.
Be
Yeah.
able to make my own decisions, especially once I turned 18. But even
Yeah.
after I turned 18, I still, and I'm gay, but I was like trying to figure out like when I marry, I'm used to have to follow the man. So I was trying to figure out like when I marry, like who obeys who? Like
Yeah. Yeah. Who's the head of the
house
household?
here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. Now, what was his reaction when you stopped wearing your bonnet?
They were pretty mad, but they not as mad as I would have thought that they would have been. But also, my memory kind of like blocks out what happened afterwards.
Yeah.
But it wasn't as bad as I would have thought. But they were definitely very angry.
And do you
It's
think
kind
that
of like
maybe they saw it coming? Like maybe you'd been a little rebellious up until then. They kind of,
probably.
yeah.
And looking back, like I wasn't rebellious. Like I feel like I was so rebellious. Like I wore tennis shoes one time, and that was like against the rules. So like my version of rebellious is probably different than like other people's
Right.
version. But
Right.
yeah, to them, I was very rebellious.
Wow. And then when you turned 18, were you allowed to just like leave if you wanted to, or was that also a process?
My parents gave me a 24-hour time frame where I had to decide if I was going to stay or if I was going to leave. And I knew that the streets would be safer than my house because there was a lot of
Wow.
things on. So I was planning on just leaving within that 24 hours and just like buying a car and living off of that or something. But I ended up staying with another family that had the same religious beliefs, but they were not violent about it. So I stayed with
Wow.
them for about 9 months and just kind of slowly, gradually left after that.
Right. So if you don't mind me asking, the violence in your house, was that based on religion, or do you think your dad just used that as an excuse to be violent? He just kind of twisted it.
It was definitely based on religion, but looking back, he was also just using that as an excuse. So everything that he did to me, like he was in God's name. God told him to do it. God, like they said that if we lived in Bible times, that they would have been able to stone me to death. And like they regretted the fact that we didn't live in Bible times because they like wanted to stone me to death. So
Right.
a lot of it was definitely religion cult based.
Wow. And is your family still part of the group, or do they still believe those beliefs?
My parents, I don't have any contact with them now, but they, to my knowledge, are still in it. I have one brother that's 10 years older than me. He has gotten out. But my parents are still, I think they've relaxed a lot of the rules. I heard that they have a TV now. which I never had a TV
Whoa.
growing up.
Whoa.
So,
Wow.
like, of course, they released all the rules now that I've left, right?
I was gonna say, like, how does that make you feel that you had to live that way? And then the minute you're gone, they're like, I guess we can relax a little bit.
Right. I think it was just like a big thing for control that they wanted to.
Oh, yeah.
So now that I'm gone, they don't have anyone to control. So like, well, let's just have fun now.
Yeah. And did they meet in the church or did they meet elsewhere? Did they get like indoctrinated later in life? What's their background?
So I think they met at like a church function, but it was not Institute Basic Life Principles or Mennonite. It was just like a normal everyday church. It was just like a potluck type of situation. They met there. And I'm not sure at what point they started doing all the Institute Basic Life Principles and Mennonite stuff. I think it was like when I was a baby, because I don't think my brother had like all the same rules as I did. But yeah.
Wow. And does that mean that your grandparents on either side, do you have any contact with them or are they involved in those organizations at all?
They're not involved in the organizations at all. I have contact with them, but we're not super close because I didn't really have contact with them growing up. I've tried to connect a little bit, but they're just kind of strangers to me almost. It sounds bad, but
no, it makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And so you had mentioned in your initial emails to me that you do a little bit of work with people who have survived cults and who have exited cults. Is that true? Is that the case?
And mostly just through my TikTok, sharing my story helps other people to share their stories, I've noticed. So just try to encourage them, advocate for them in the comments when people have questions, kind of explain what happened. I'm still very early on in that. I have hopes to start like an organization to help people who were homeschooled or in cults to navigate leaving, because it can be very overwhelming when you leave a cult and all you know is how your house did things. You don't know how the outside world does things. So anything like buying a car, getting an actual education, like it's all very overwhelming when it's not something that's taught to you. So I have hopes to start in the future, but for now it's just through my TikTok.
Interesting. And so what was the moment where you're like, I'm free now? Was there a moment or was it just kind of like a gradual realization where you're just like, oh my gosh, I can literally do whatever I want?
I don't think there ever was like just a moment. It was so gradual. But nowadays I have continuous like, oh my God, I'm free now moments. Like whether it's just waking up and choosing what I want to wear, wearing pants for the first time, getting a TV. I just got a TV today. I haven't even set it up yet.
Yay, congratulations.
So it's like little moments like that where I'm like, oh my God, I am free. I have free will. Like I'm a human. I'm not somebody's property anymore. Like I can do what I want.
Yeah. And how long ago was it that you left?
I left when I was 19, like 18, 19 years old, and I'm 23 now. So
so that was very recently.
Yes. But even then, when I say it was 18, 19, it's still kind of continual, gradual, or I still feel like I'm leaving it every single day.
Yes.
I have more realizations. I'm like, oh, well, that was a cult type of belief. Maybe we don't think that anymore.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like religion is very much a dependency, like caffeine, like nicotine, like anything else. And it's a very gradual weaning process. And even when you're like, I'm very confident in the fact that this is no longer my life, there's still that part in the back of your brain that's like, are you sure? Like how far in the other direction are we going to go before it is actually bad, before you are actually doing bad stuff? And I like for some people, including myself, that never goes away 100%. You're always going to have that little voice that's like, even if you continue to even if you continue to do whatever it was. What was do you remember like what the first secular thing was that you did that you were just like, oh no?
I got a job outside of the house, which is a 911 dispatcher job. I think that was one of the main first secular things that I did. And I wore pants for the first time. It took me a while after I left to start wearing pants, but then I pierced my ear, got a tattoo. Like I went all out.
You're going to hell. The end. Right. The road to hell is paved with tattoos and pants.
Exactly. How dare I?
That's wild.
I cried the first time that I wore pants because it felt like such a shameful thing for me to do. Like, oh my God, like, are all the guys looking at me now? Like, if something happens to me, is it my fault? Like, am I being a temptation? Like, There was a
Right.
lot going on there.
Yeah, yeah. And I feel like that's such a huge message too across most forms of Christianity is it's the girl's job to keep the guys in line.
Exactly. Yes.
And that like that idea sticks with you.
Absolutely. Mennonites and IBLP, all those kind of plain communities, they all rely heavily on that belief.
Yeah. And are there any rules or beliefs or ideas from either Mennonite or IBLP that you're like, that wasn't actually so bad. I may keep that methodology in my life.
I don't think so. I've pretty
Yeah.
much read all of it. They
Yeah.
were good. IBLP especially was good at teaching budgeting, probably to an extreme type of level. But I think that was probably helpful in my adult life to learn how to budget, but
Yeah.
maybe not to that extreme.
Yeah. Oh, I was not expecting that. In what way do they extreme budget? Are they kind of like doomsday preppers or like what are the things that they?
Absolutely doomsday preppers. My family especially, we had to have entire buckets full of dry grain just in case like the end times happened or Christianity becomes illegal. It was all very end times based.
Yes.
But we would we weren't poor by any means, but we would have to save up all of the money that we did have just in case something happened or for when parents retired. So in some ways it's kind of like I felt like we were poor, but we weren't because we had money. We just couldn't use it.
Yeah. Was it considered sinful to use it or it was just frowned upon?
It was definitely considered sinful. As much as getting conditioner, we weren't allowed to do. It was considered like vanity and
Wow.
sorry. It was considered vanity and is definitely sinful.
Have you bought conditioner yet?
Yes.
I was gonna say your hair looks great. Your hair looks very nourished, so I would believe it.
Yes, I think it was like you were asking one of the first things I did. That was probably one of the first things. It's like this needs conditioner.
Yes, you're like trim it, condition it. Oh yeah, that's amazing.
Like starting over, chop it off, like shaved on the sides.
Hey, yeah, shaved on the sides. What I'm telling you.
Love it.
Yeah. That's so wild. And so with your older brother, do you ever communicate with him? Are you guys close at all? Because it sounds like he's significantly older than you, but I wasn't sure if you ever talked about your experiences with him.
I've taught him a few of the things that happened. He knows that I'm doing like the podcast and my TikTok. Like he knows that I'm kind of exposing the family, basically exposing the cult.
Yeah.
But yeah, we have some contact. We're not super duper close just because there is such an age gap and
right.
Basically didn't grow up with him just because he left as soon as he was 18. But we are reconnecting, gaining that friendship, love each other very much. I just went to his house a few weeks ago. So
that's great.
Not that we don't get along or anything like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I totally get that. You have relatives that are like 10 years older than you. You're as close as you can be 10 years apart, but there's just that gap there.
Yeah, he's the best brother that he could be. So
good. That's awesome. That's excellent. And then, so you mentioned that you're gay.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
How did you find out and when did you find out?
It should have been obvious when I was a child, but it wasn't. Even when I was like really, really young, like 5 years old, there was this one lady that was like, I want to marry you when I grow up. Granted, she was, an adult, so that would have never worked out.
Right.
It should have been obvious from that moment. It was not. I think I was maybe 18 years old. Saw somebody, actually I was 17. Met somebody at work because I was allowed to work at a greenhouse, and I was like, I'm kind of attracted to this person. Why am I attracted to this person? I try to just push it off as like, oh, I just want a sister. It's not like, that I want to like marry them or anything. I just want a sister.
Or is it?
Right. As time goes on, like, I actually do. So it was very difficult. I had a lot of mental health issues over it because growing up in a situation where we were very, very homophobic. I myself was very, very homophobic for much of my life.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So it was a very difficult thing to come to realization with. I went to somebody at work that was gay and married and has a happy family. And I went up to her, I was like, I think I'm gay. And I was like, even though she was gay, I still was so worried that she'd be like mad at me or something.
Yeah.
I'm like,
it's like, I know gay. You're not gay.
Right.
Interesting. And so have you tried dating in like the secular world?
Yes, I have dated a few times. I'm still single, but we have definitely have dated a few times and loved
Yeah.
it. Definitely not straight. I
That's
tried thinking that like I could pray the gay away or force myself to be straight, so I tried to date a guy. It did not work out.
it's not worth it. Don't do it. Don't do it. No, I love my partner, but don't do it.
Right?
Um, so you grew up IBLP, and then you mentioned that you were kind of a combination of Mennonite and IBLP. And then after that, how did you guys end up in a synagogue? How did that come about? Like when I read that part of your email like 3 times, I was like, wait a second, how did that happen?
Confusing. It's confusing for me.
Yeah.
So my mom was more into the Mennonite and the IBLP type thing, especially the Mennonite. So my dad never went to the Mennonite church. It was just me and my mom. And then my dad wanted us all to go to the Messianic Jewish Synagogue. So we all went there, and we were actually part of the worship team, myself included. But he never went to anything Christian. Like I joined a choir at like a regular church, and he would not go to that because that was not Messianic. He had to only do Messianic Jewish things. My mom was
Interesting.
more on the Christian side. Even
Yeah.
though he didn't like he wasn't part of the Mennonite community, he still had a lot of the same belief systems, even though
Hmm.
like, he did and was part of the Messianic part.
Interesting. Now, Messianic Judaism is where they believe that Jesus was the Son of God, right?
So they follow like all of the rules of the first few books of the Bible, the Torah, the Tanakh. And we definitely did not call him Jesus. We called him Yeshua.
Got it.
But same person.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's basically like a mixture of Judaism and Christianity. It's the Jewish people do not like it. It's kind of toxic to them because we would try to like pull people from actual Jewish synagogues
Right.
and convert them. It was very big on converting people,
Yeah.
whether they were Jewish or not Jewish, whatever they were. We actually did a few mission trips in Arizona to a couple of indigenous tribes, actually, multiple tribes, trying to convert them to Christianity. So it was always very trying to convert people, but
Yeah.
especially with people, we just kind of stole from their religion basically and combined it with Christianity.
Yeah. You're like, look, we're just going to take, like, I know that history has taken literally everything from you guys all the time, but we're just going to take a little more. But what's interesting, yeah. And what's interesting to me is that was the form of Judaism that he chose to follow, but he also had beef with Christianity, even though it's like the closest. So what was his beef with, like, just straight up Christianity?
I really do not understand the beef. Even though I was raised with it, like I tried to get it explained to me, never understood what the beef was because it's basically the same thing. But he was definitely upset that Christians like would eat pork, not eat kosher, not celebrate like all the holidays of the Old Testament. They just follow like the New Testament. That was, from my understanding, that's pretty much what the beef was.
So the beef was pork, is what you're saying.
Basically. Pork is such a dividing thing.
Right. The battle of the pork.
Right.
That's so interesting. And so as you move forward in your life, when you look back, what are some of the most harmful rules that they had? And what are some rules that they had that maybe you see like potentially, if any, came from a good place, but were then like bastardized to mean something else?
Yeah. The fact that parents were supposed to protect their children could have been a good thing, but they take it to such an extreme level that it actually becomes harmful, especially in the situation that they tell fathers that they can do whatever they want to their children in the means of protecting them. So that can cause a lot and does cause a lot of abuse of multiple types in many households. Sorry, what was the question? I got distracted.
Oh yeah, no, we were just talking about basically the good rule or the bad rules, like the worst rules they had, and then the ones that maybe potentially at one point came from a good place, but then were just.
Gotcha. Yeah. So that one I think did probably come from a good place, but they take it to such an extreme level that is very harmful rule. Especially like I said, where parents can do whatever, fathers can do whatever they want to their daughter's bodies.
Yeah.
All kinds of rules, and having to have a good report for the household, always smiling, always being joyful, even if that's not what you're feeling. Definitely a rule.
Wow. And then was that the type of religion that would have dictated who you married, or were you allowed to pick yourself, or was there like a courtship situation?
It would have been a courtship situation. I would have had some say in who I married, but it would have had to been a guy, but
Right.
it would have had to be somebody that my father approved of. I know a lot of people, ask for the father's approval, but they take it to even more extreme levels.
Right.
Has to be who the dad wants. And
Right.
the family that I lived with for 8 or 9 months after I moved out, I call them my adopted family. They did kind of do more of like an arranged marriage type of situation. Their daughters are not married yet. They're about my age. They're not married yet, but they're kind of wanting to do an arranged marriage type of situation.
So they're still involved in the church?
Yes, very much so. He's still involved. They actually moved out to a different state so that they could be in a community. I'm not sure if it's exactly IBLP, but it's kind of like a very similar branch off type of thing. So they actually live in like a commune type thing, to my knowledge. I've never visited them because they shunned me after I came out as gay, but
Oh no, I was going to ask if you were still in contact. So you came out to them?
yes, I came out to them, kind of a dual thing of coming out to them as gay and saying like I'm leaving all of this religion stuff behind. So
Yeah.
they said basically it's like I'm dead to them.
Wow.
So, no
Were
contact.
they angry when they say that, or was it more of like oh bummer, and now we have to cut you off?
They were kind of angry. They weren't violent about it or anything. Like my family is more of the violent type, not them. But yeah, they were definitely upset. They said it was more of like a mournful type of thing to them, but they moved on very quickly. Whereas for me, it was even more of a mourning period because that was like my adopted family, my best friends, my life. But for them, like short mournful period where it's like I died, but move on.
Yeah. Well, and that's almost kind of like, in a way, almost doing you a favor, because now you kind of get to come back to life, start over fresh, decide who you are, decide what you want to do. So it's like, I can see how that's like very upsetting, and like, it's sad that somebody you care about would cut you off, but it's also like, oh, well, if I'm dead now, I can just reinvent myself as somebody new.
Yes, I finally feel alive. So here we go.
Yeah, exactly.
When I did have contact with them, like whenever I would visit their family, their household, it was always like I had to pretend to be somebody that I wasn't. I would, even though I'd started wearing pants on my own, I would put on my dress and sometimes my head covering as well, and had the long hair, and try to be like the person that they wanted me to be, just kind of act that character.
Yeah.
So it was probably a good thing that they cut me off. Now I can just be myself.
Yeah. Now you can just be yourself all the time. So walk us through. So you leave the religion. What is life like after that? Like, walk us through your introduction to the secular world and anything else that like stood out to you, or any journeys that you're currently on. Like, you just bought a TV. What are those experiences like? What are the hardest parts and the easiest parts of embracing this new version?
Yeah. I think that the hardest part would be finally making decisions for myself. Like, it's a great thing. I'm so happy that I can make decisions for myself, but it's also very overwhelming because like I wake up, I have to decide what I'm going to wear, what I'm going to eat. Like, before, everything was controlled for me. So I never had to make decisions like that. Now I have to make all of those decisions. So it can be a very overwhelming type of situation, but just kind of moving through that, I guess.
Yeah. And then I'm guessing you probably weren't allowed to like listen to secular music or watch television shows or anything like that before. Is that something, do you have like a favorite artist now that you listen to a lot?
I listen to For King and Country, which is a Christian band. I'm not Christian anymore, but they're Christian. I listen to them. I listen to NF, which is rap. I never would have been allowed to listen to rap.
No. Yeah, that probably would have been like
no rap, no rock, nothing with like a heartbeat like that or anything.
Wow.
So I listen to those kinds of music, and I'm a pagan now. So
I was about to ask you, how do you identify as?
Yeah, I'm a pagan now. I kind of like researched a whole bunch of religions after I left, trying to figure out what religion. I knew the cult wasn't for me. So I was like, do I just go into like regular Christianity? Do I want to be like regular Jewish? Do I want to be like Messianic Jewish? So now I just ended up pagan. So I just kind of believe that all the gods exist in some form or fashion, I guess.
Yeah. Was that what you found attractive about paganism? Was that idea, or was there anything else that you found about it that you enjoyed?
I think that's I don't have to rely on a God for everything. I don't have to have a God that makes all of my decisions for me. I can ask the universe for things. I can do tarot readings and get guidance for things and work with deities, but I'm also able to make decisions for myself and kind of go in what direction feels right for me.
Mhm. Do
I
you
think
think that do you think that your brain is kind of hardwired for the rest of your life to never have no religion at all? Do you think it's pretty safe to say that you'll always be like a part of a religion, or is that just how you prefer?
I'll probably always be pagan, but who knows? So many things in my brain have changed over the years as I get out that who knows, next year I might be atheist. I don't know.
Yeah, you never know.
Find out what works for me. I feel like I definitely was hardwired into having a religion, but definitely not paganism. That's the worst religion you can be, right?
Yeah, no, definitely. It's devil worship and all that.
Exactly.
And what does paganism believe in terms of when we die, or what do you believe as a pagan? What happens to us when we die?
Yeah. So a lot of people, there's no set answer in paganism. So you could ask 10 pagans their answer to that, and probably everyone's answer is going to be different.
Right.
And honestly, don't have all the answers for what happens after we die. I have started ghost hunting with someone doing paranormal investigations. So
that's awesome.
It's so much fun. So I definitely believe that there could be spirits hanging out around, but after that, don't know.
Yeah. Do Mennonites or people in IBLP, do they believe in ghosts or anything like that? Is that a no-no?
It's a no-no.
Oh, dang.
I remember as a child, there was a shadow type of thing under my bed, and I didn't know what it was. I thought it was a ghost or something, and my parents got mad. They're like, no. They ended up telling me that it was just an angel so that I wouldn't be scared. But now that
that's clever.
Probably a spirit.
Is there anything about the future that is scary to you in terms of moving on and separating yourself from that past?
Not really. I sometimes am afraid that since now that I can make my own decisions, that I'll make the wrong decision and mess it all up. But other than that, I don't I was so scared when I was in the cult, but now that I'm out and have acclimated to the real world, future doesn't really seem that scary anymore. Whatever happens, we'll figure it out.
Yeah. And also, if somebody else is making all of your decisions for you, they can also make the wrong decision. So at the end of the day,
you're right.
At least it's your decision if you screw it up. Right. Exactly. Man, that is so wild. And so you had mentioned that, and I can cut this out if you want me to. You had mentioned that the cult sometimes gets mad when people speak out against it. If you don't mind me asking, what does that look like? How does one find out that the cult is mad, or that members of the cult are mad?
So my case would probably be different than some people's cases. I've heard of a lot of people when they leave that Bill Gothard, the leader of IBLP, calls them up directly, harasses them, all of that.
Wow.
Since we weren't still members, he doesn't have my phone number, so not really worried about that. He could sue me. I think, don't quote me on this, I think he's tried to sue some people before when they tried to speak out. So that's a possibility. I doubt it though. I'm not too worried about that. Mostly for me, I'm more concerned about my parents, because they still do have those same beliefs. They tried to stalk me for a while after I left because they wanted me to come back to the cult and the religion and back to them so that they could control me again. So they would probably be more my concern. The family that's still in the cult would be my issue.
And when you were growing up in that cult, did you see a lot of people leave, or did people just disappear and you heard that did they give any kind of excuse for where people went when they left, or did everyone pretty much stay?
Pretty much everyone stayed, especially with the Mennonite church. There was people that wanted to leave. I remember there was one lady that I think they wanted her to be a teacher because she was in her 40s. She was single. She didn't have any children. So they said she needed to teach the children. She didn't want to be a teacher. That wasn't her thing. She just kind of wanted to work at the little store that they had, the little Mennonite store. So people wanted to leave and make their own decisions, but they were afraid of shunning. There was always that fear of, if you leave, if you break some of the rules, you're going to get shunned. And don't want to have to say goodbye to your friends and your family and everything that you've ever known. So most people did stay.
Wow, that's wild. Did anybody ever talk like kind of in private about leaving, or was that also very frowned upon?
It was pretty
Yeah,
frowned upon. It was
I would imagine.
hush hush. If people did want to leave, they would confide that they were unhappy with things. But other than that, it was hush hush. Just pretend everything is fine. Go out with a smile on your face. Be content. Smile, happy. It's all great.
That's wild. And do you remember like was there any final straw that made you be like, this is it, I'm out of here? Or was it pretty much a decision you had made long earlier and it just took until you were 18 and could leave?
I don't really think that there was a final straw. It's just kind of one thing after another and just kind of a gradual thing. Seems like a lot of people when they leave, they have like a set moment where they're like, that's not right. But for me, it was just kind of one thing after another and so gradual that I didn't even really notice.
Yeah.
Other than with my father, like saying he could do whatever he wanted to my body. That was, if there was a last straw, that probably would have been it.
Oh yeah. Yeah. That's the only straw you need. That alone is like, I'm out of here. Wow. That's wild. I know I keep saying that, but it is like this whole story. Like I don't usually say that's wild this often, but it is. It's just a wild story. Do you hope one day to maybe write a book about it? Does that interest you at all?
Yes, I would absolutely love to write a book as well as start up that organization that I was telling you about.
Yeah.
And that would probably be something in the future. I was
Yeah.
starting writing things down. I would kind of do like a journal type of thing that I wanted to publish into a book of just like navigating the world outside of the cult. But unfortunately, the app that I was writing on it decided to delete everything that I had typed for a really long time. So now I don't know
No.
start over or where I'm going to take this.
Wow, that's so sad. Oh my gosh. Do you use your notes app ever? Because I don't think that ever goes away on your iPhone.
Now I have like a different journal type app that I
Oh,
use. I guess
that's
it didn't
terrible.
say that it was synced to the cloud like it was supposed to. And it was very disappointing.
Oh, I would cry. I would just cry. I'd be like, that's it. I'm just gonna weep.
Right.
Yeah, interesting. And so if you met people who were either trying to decide if they wanted to leave the way that you did, or maybe have just left, but don't really know what to do after that, what kind of advice would you give them? Or if anybody's listening who might need that advice, what kind of advice would you give somebody like that?
Yeah. I would tell them to just start experimenting, talking to people, learning about different ways of life, different religions, seeing if that's what feels right for you. If you feel like you're being controlled, start making your own decisions. Think about like what would happen if you left. Try to go that route. Think about like if you were not raised with this specific belief system, what would you believe? Are you only thinking that because that's what was basically brainwashed into you from day one? Or is that what you think is actually the truth? I would say to go down that path.
Awesome. And for yourself, do you have any personal goals that don't really have anything to do with the faith itself? Like, do you think you might go to school, or have you been to school, or is there any future goals like that that you have down the road for you?
I am considering going to college. I do have like a homeschool diploma, but I don't have like any kind of grading or anything like that. So I think it would be very difficult for me to get into college. I would have to talk to people and figure out what route to go. But since I am a 911 dispatcher, I'm actually a dispatcher at a college campus. So if I
Oh,
ever
that's
did
cool.
go that route, like there is some help there.
Yeah.
But I think that would be one of my goals, or I'm thinking about doing.
Yeah. And I wonder, I'm probably going to Google it after this. I wonder if there's an organization out there for helping people who have escaped cults to get enrolled in college, like providing for them what they need. Because that's a great point. If you don't have the literal GPA that people usually use to get into school, or you haven't taken the ACT or the SAT or things like that, it's like, what do you do? I don't even know. I wonder
And
if there's
even though like I have a high school diploma, my version of education is very different than somebody that went to school.
right.
I learned about like cult rules and cult version of the Bible. That was like my schooling. It was all Bible based. Like I didn't learn about evolution or anything like that until after I left. So even if I did go to college, I'm gonna have to catch up on a lot of things before I go.
Yeah. How do you feel about evolution? Do you believe in evolution? Is it
I really
interesting?
don't know yet.
Yeah.
It's kind of confusing. Like, it doesn't really make sense, but I don't know if that's just because I was raised to not think that it makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, if you're ever interested in hearing more about it, I've got some people I can send your way who I've talked to about evolution, and they do a really great job of kind of spelling it out. One of my guests wrote a book. I've got it here somewhere. I might be able to find it and show it to you. But yeah, there's some really cool content out there about evolution. Even people I know who don't believe in evolution, they read this stuff and they're like, this is a fair argument. I enjoyed reading this, but I can absolutely see how that would be very confusing, especially after your whole life you learn, your biblical doctrine as opposed to scientific.
Yes.
But what has been your, if you can think of one, what's been like your funniest realization since you've been, like the most pleasant, funny realization since you've left the church?
I don't know that I've had one.
Like no like snack that you never heard of that you tried and was awesome.
Oh, there has definitely been a lot of food. Boba tea, which is my favorite thing now.
Nice.
Funny thing is that, like, growing up homeschooled, like, don't talk to other people very often outside the family. So I find out that my parents pronounce things that was completely wrong. Like, I always thought it was pronounced KKO, but apparently it's cacao or something like that.
Yeah,
So
that's interesting.
Moments where I'll say something and people start laughing at me or be completely confused as to what I'm talking about. I'm like, cacao, what is there to be confused about cacao?
That's awesome. That I had that exact same experience, and I wasn't even raised in a cult. The first job that I had after college, somebody was like, "Oh, what are you eating?" And I was like, "Oh, it's a quinoa bowl." And she was like, "A what bowl?" And I was like, "It's a quinoa bowl. It's got quinoa grains in it." And she's like, "Quinoa? Is that what you're talking about?" And I realized in that moment, I'd only ever read the word. I'd never heard anyone say it out loud. And so now I'm super paranoid that there's words out there I don't realize I've only ever read.
Exactly.
And I'm just gonna like say it out loud in front of a room full of people. So I feel that. And like I wasn't even raised in a cult. I have no excuse. Have you ever gotten a negative reaction from people when they find out that you were raised in a cult?
A lot of people don't view it as a cult, especially with the Mennonite stuff. They think that it was just like a happy community, so innocent and pure and safe. And once I start educating them about it, I think they understand a little bit more. But I've definitely gotten people that are like, well, that's not a cult, or you're just trying to maybe get attention, something like that. But then once I start explaining to it, I think they understand a little bit more.
Yeah. And how does that usually come up in conversation with people? Like, how is that normally brought up to begin with?
Usually not in conversation. It's usually TikTok comments where it'll land on their For You page. They have absolutely no idea, or maybe they're a troll. And so that's when they start spewing out the hate comments.
Yes. Oh gosh.
But face to face, I don't think I've had a whole lot of, at least with people like outside the cult, they've really had that issue.
And if you were to go on a date, say like tomorrow, would you tell them during the first date about your cult history, or is that something you save for like date 2 or 3? How would you broach that?
I would probably tell them up front, because there's a lot of things where I could seem pretty weird just because I was basically raised in a completely different culture. So I would try to tell them pretty far, like pretty close into like when we first meet them, just so that they have a little bit of understanding why I am the way I am.
Yeah. You're like, listen, I pronounce it cacao. I know that's not how it's pronounced, but that's just how I do it. And I need you to be okay with it.
It's the only way. It's the right way to pronounce it now.
That is the correct way to pronounce cacao.
I don't care what the dictionary says. Just don't look it up.
Yeah, just don't worry about it. It's fine. And so if you were to talk to somebody who you wanted to understand more about people from cults, we had the message for people coming out of cults, very similar to your situation. What would you want for people like myself to understand, who has never been in a cult, has never been a member of a cult, in order to kind of help them understand people from your situation or from your side, like those TikTok commenters?
Yeah. I would explain to them how much brainwashing goes on within cults and plain communities, and how it starts at day 1. So people, when they ask, well, why didn't you just leave? Or, they have a choice. Explain, not really, like we didn't really have a choice. We didn't know that there was another way out of life out there, or we thought that it was completely different. So when we feel like that's the set way, it's because it was basically brainwashed into us.
Right. Wow.
way we're like able to think about other belief systems. That was just the way that it was.
Yeah. And it sounds like there were also significant, what's the word I'm looking for? I don't want to say punishment, but it sounds like there's significant issues if you don't follow the rules. So it's not just, oh, I'm doing what everybody says because they tell me to. It's consequences. That's the word I was looking for. There's severe consequences if you don't. So it's not even like you're blindly following. It sounds like, especially in your household, there were physical ramifications if you didn't follow the rules.
Absolutely. And in the Mennonite church, they had like a little plastic rod for any of the children. Didn't matter. Like there was no age limit. Literal babies were getting hit if they didn't follow the rules, but the baby doesn't know English yet. They're literal baby, but there's somehow rules. So there was always those kinds of consequences in the Mennonite church. I remember there was one person who broke one of the rules. I don't remember what rule it was. It was something that was simple and man-made, wasn't even in the Bible, but he broke that rule. And so he had like a kind of partial shunning for a while where he was allowed to be in the building, but he had to sit in the far corner. Nobody, even the men, were allowed to talk to him. He was not allowed to talk to anybody else. He had to stay completely separate until he repented and did whatever else they wanted him to do for whatever little sin he had done.
Yeah. Do you know if he eventually repented or?
Yes, he did. He eventually repented, did whatever they wanted him to do, and was like reintegrated back into the church.
Yeah. What is that usually like a public thing? Like, do they have to stand in front of the congregation and do anything? Or is it usually just something private that's handled by the elders?
There is very public things. Women would be forced to confess to the entire church if they had like any of the sexual sins.
Wow.
They would have to confess to everyone in the church, including the children. So I was learning about these sins and I was like a child myself and like, Mom, what's that mean?
Yeah. And were they, like, upon reflection, were they actual sins or were they just things that particular church didn't want you to do? Like, were they actually bad things or like risque things, or were they just pretty normal things that you weren't allowed to do there?
They were completely normal things that people do in everyday life that is just normal, but the church said it was wrong. So it's wrong.
Yeah. Was it like kissing outside of marriage and stuff like that?
Anything, playing with yourself outside of marriage, whatever it was. Even having lace on your curtains is considered a sin of wrong. So it could be something as simple as that.
Wow. Is it because it's like see-through or just it's ostentatious?
It's vanity.
Yeah. Wow. And so if somebody is not sure, they think I might be in a cult, but I'm not sure. From your personal opinion, what are some signs that somebody might know that they're in a cult or that they're being controlled in that way?
Yeah. The first thing I would do is to question yourself of what would happen if you leave. If you leave, is it going to be like, okay, well, I'm sad to see you go, but we'll still be friends. Like it's going to still be the same relationship, or are they going to shun you? Or are they going to, like in my case, stalk you after you leave? What's going to happen if you try to leave? And also, are they trying to control your behavior, what kind of information you get, your thoughts, everything? There's something called the bite model. So try to compare things to that and kind of see if that matches up to what you're in.
Right. And also I feel like if the punishment outweighs the crime, that can also be, like my mom doesn't like my makeup, but she's never going to like beat me for putting on too much eyeliner, right? She's never, or like for going out on a date with somebody she didn't give me permission to. Wow, that's some really good advice. Really good advice. Well, Jules, I don't have any more questions for you, but I did want to say that I really appreciate your time and your story. And I know we've been working for like weeks and months to get you on here. I was reading back over our emails and I was like, hey, I need to reschedule. Me too. I need to reschedule. I'm so sorry. I got to reschedule. And so we finally did it. And I'm so glad you're on here, and I'm immediately going to go follow you on TikTok. But I wanted to tell you that I think your story is, one, incredible, two, very brave for sharing. I think a lot of people like me are very interested in this topic, but we will never know what it feels like, and we'll never know firsthand experience, which I'm grateful for. But I'm also grateful for people like you who share yours, because I know that can't be easy.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for having me on. I really enjoyed getting to chat with you and share my story.
Yeah, no problem. And for anybody listening, I'm going to link her TikTok below, and please follow her, subscribe, get her those TikTok likes. Don't say anything mean. in those comments. They like to complain about my eyebrows on TikTok. Nobody wants to hear your complaints. Positive vibes only. And what's your cat's name?
Liberty.
Liberty. Oh, I love it. That's so fitting too. That's great. For anybody listening, the cat has been a member of this interview this whole time. But yeah, thank you so much, Jules. I really appreciate it. And I will send you direct links to your episode as soon as it goes live.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
All right. I'll talk to you later.
Talk to you. Bye.